I'm Ghitta Larsen, and I'm a cinematographer and Steadicam operator.
Hello, you're listening to Art, the podcast where we get up close and personal as we get to know women from around the world of visual arts. I'm Chris Stafford, and this is Season 3, Episode 20. My guest this week is the cinematographer and Steadicam operator Ghitta Larsen, whose credits include The Shop, My Kind of People, 90 Day Fiancé, and Meek. Ghitta was born in Sonoma, California in 1994. She has a younger brother, Anthony, who is a jazz musician. Her mother, Sylvia, who is an architect, constantly encouraged Ghitta to pursue her talents in a variety of sports, a challenge that Ghitta took seriously, which resulted in her becoming a competitive swimmer at the age of 9. From there, she discovered water polo and, in her words, became obsessed with the sport, playing for the Central Coast ODP team at Sonoma Valley High School, and then Division I in Southern California during college at Cal State Northridge, which led to joining the Olympic Development Program. When she moved to New York, Ghitta explored weightlifting and also became competitive in that sport. She says she still has unfinished business in this arena, but for now she is into CrossFit, which also helps her core strength for camera work. During her sports career, Ghitta studied film, graduating from the New York University's Tisch School of the Arts with a bachelor's degree in film and TV in 2016. Her first job combined her love of filming with the sport of CrossFit, and since then she has widened her aperture to include music videos, shorts, and TV. She enjoys thought-provoking genres, including horror movies, and has ambitions to explore underwater photography too, which would combine her love for swimming. Currently, she is spending most of her time as a camera operator and as a DP. Ghitta lives in New York with her partner Rosmaldo Faccio. Ghitta, welcome to the podcast.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Is this your first podcast, or are you a pro now?
I would qualify this as a first podcast, but I actually have done one other for a friend of mine, but this was almost a decade ago.
Okay. So you do listen to podcasts, though, when you're driving, you told me.
Yeah, a little bit. I am more of a music person, though.
Oh, yeah, you sent me your playlist, and that looks super interesting. Are you going to tell me you're a musician as well?
No, that's what's actually very funny about me and my sibling brother. He's the audio, and I'm purely visual. We both can't do either the other thing.
You're a very musical family.
No, well, it's interesting because my brother picked up jazz music at a very young age. Like, we were in elementary school. So for as long as I can remember, he was playing the saxophone in his room almost 6-8 hours a day, as much as he could. So there was that element. But outside of him, that was it.
He's a professional, is he, Anthony?
Yes.
But you didn't pick that up. That wasn't the route for you. No,
my trajectory when I was younger, I was very into sports. I was like the athlete of the family, and he was the hyper intelligent musician.
So what sports did you play?
So I grew up being a swimmer. I started competitively swimming at around the age of 8 or 9. And it was kind of I hit the water and I was very good. And my mother was always someone who was very supportive of anything we wanted to do. That's why for music, he when he wanted to play music, she immediately bought him an instrument. And when I got into swimming, she immediately put me on a competitive team. She was very supportive of anything we wanted to try. And once I got involved with swimming, I basically swam through middle school, and I was pretty good. But then I found water polo, and that became my main sport as when I was younger.
Water polo, yeah, that's of course an Olympic sport. So what was it that appealed to you about combining, a team event with swimming, your swimming skills? I mean, that's everything, right? And very fast paced.
Yeah, I I'm a rather big person. I'm five. By the time I was in elementary school, not elementary school, let's say seventh, eighth grade, I was probably already 5'10" and weighing in around 200 pounds. And swimming, I was very good in the water, but I was never the fastest. I was always the strongest. And so when I found water polo as a sport, I just found like it felt like my niche, that I was strong and good in the water, and it quickly became something I was truly obsessed with for most of my youth.
Really? And did you think of the Olympics as a goal?
Oh yeah. Actually, I mean, I was on the Olympic development program when I was younger, so I was playing for the the California region is pretty much the home base of most water polo. It's kind of the hot spot for any of the Olympians, and I was on the Central Coast team when I was younger, and I also played Division One my freshman year of college in Los Angeles, and it was something that I wanted to be the best at. I was very dedicated. The higher up you go, though, the more politics that are involved. And I come from a small town. I didn't come from a town where larger athletes were usually picked from. And that combined with realizing that most of the girls on the team needed another career and a paying job, it almost didn't seem like I was going to get to the top, and I still needed to have another career path. And in college is kind of when I made the decision to go, okay, I need to focus on a career. This is not going to be paying my bills.
But there was a passion, though. It must have been hard to step away from it.
Oh, it was, I will say the year that I stepped away from playing, it was one of the most formative and lost feelings I've ever felt.
Yeah.
It was like being plucked out of your universe and like truly feeling like a fish out of water.
Yeah, well, literally. It is a now what moment, isn't it? You often hear this from pro athletes when they do retire eventually, either through injury or from choice, that it is a now what moment because the life has been dedicated to pro sport. So that must have felt the same for you. Now what?
Yeah, no, it really did. I always had an interest in being an artist as in terms of filmmaking and photography. I was involved in all of those things at the same time in my academics. And when I decided to stop, I was like, I'm just going to go like headfirst into my career path in filmmaking. But it's not the same. Like when you're an athlete, you practice every day for hours and it's physical exertion. And so stopping that and just diving headfirst into film, it still didn't like scratch that itch. And so I ended up going into weightlifting, and I became a competitive weightlifter for many years. And I actually continued weightlifting while going to film school.
Did you really? Oh, good for you.
Yeah. And so I was competing at the same time. And I really stopped competing. The year I stopped competing was 2019.
By now, obviously, you're fully grown. You talked about being already 5'10" when you were in eighth grade. How tall are you now?
I'm around 5'10", 5'11". That I pretty much shot up in middle school, and that was like my height.
And so now what do you do? Because you're, fully immersed in your profession. Where do you get your buzz?
I actually go to CrossFit. I really enjoy the environment there because it is intense and competitive. Everyone's doing the same workout and you're competing for the fastest time or the most weight lifted. And even though it's only an hour and it's with a bunch of people that are not all of them professional athletes, it still kind of gives me that drive and that little ounce of what I feel like I'm missing from being an athlete.
Yeah, that adrenaline rush, huh?
Yeah, and I think also being physically like capable, like I love working with the Steadicam because it's so strength and inducing and just grueling at the same time. It is like an addiction. It's like you love being like physically active to the point where when you accomplish it, you just feel so great afterwards.
Yeah, and of course for Steadicam, it's your core. No, it's not just your upper body and your arms and shoulders, which you clearly have that upper body strength, but it's the core and the legs as well, and the back. It's a full body experience, isn't it? That you've got to be so stable and strong yourself. So I'd imagine everything that you've done just led you to being a natural Steadicam operator.
I like to think that. I think it is something that I actually was truly always interested in. When I went to film school, they showed me what a Steadicam was, and I had just started competing in weightlifting. I'd started working in the field, and I was actually competing in strongman as well. And so both of those things, when I found Steadicam, I was like, oh, this is something that I would really love to like fuse my two passions with. But when I was in school, Steadicam equipment is extremely expensive. So there was kind of no real route for me at the time. And I just kind of had to keep my head down, and I kept working with weightlifting. And it wasn't until a couple years ago that I was really able to financially figure out getting into the field of Steadicam.
And is it your favorite toy now?
Oh, 100%.
That beats everything else, right? Beats all the weights, beats all the other gear.
Yeah, because you get to be an artist at the same time, which is like magical.
I mean, really is an all-body experience, isn't it? It literally, I mean, in every sense, it's an all-body experience.
Yeah, there is a few differences because there's a few different styles of vests that you can wear that will allocate the weight across your body a little bit differently. I actually operate with a back-mounted vest, which sends the weight more to my legs versus my lower back, which I, in a kinesiology sense, like a lot more because you have a lot stronger legs than lower back muscles.
Exactly. So that's your comfort zone. That's your happy place now.
Yeah, and even when we're not shooting, I'm constantly practicing. I actually have a few people that I practice with a lot, and that group has really uplifted me into the community of Steadicam operators because I have had so many hours under the rig without before even stepping on some of the bigger sets that I've been on.
What was the most challenging part of that for you?
Well, the barrier to entry into the Steadicam world is very expensive, and I don't like to harp on that a lot, but at the same time, I think it's really worth understanding to a lot of people that it is very expensive, and I wish a lot more people were able to cross that barrier, and I wish it wasn't so expensive because it is something that I try and find truly fun and fulfilling. And I just wish the financial aspect of it wasn't the biggest barrier, but it really is.
But once you overcame that creatively, what was the most challenging for you until you found you were proficient at it?
Well, that's interesting because I did a lot of my own operating, like handheld operating, for years before. So the most challenging was just being able to physically operate the machinery. And it wasn't so much even the physical, it's the fine tuning skill of it, because once you get all that weight on your body, you now have to delicately dance with this object. So it kind of combines these two very brute strength to hold it, but at the same time, you're touching it with such softness and finesse. And I think the softness and finesse is where that true, like if you're one of the top Steadicam operators, that's where you really shine.
So this has been obviously your goal. You met your goals competitively as an athlete and now in the world of filmmaking. But I want to go back to where it all began. You were born in 1994 in Sonoma, California. So you're a West Coast girl, but you're now based in New York. I'm wondering what childhood was like there for you. You mentioned your mum, Sylvia, who enabled whatever you and your brother wanted to do. She was an architect, though. Were you at all interested in what she did? And what kind of relationship did you have with her?
The relationship I have with my mother is absolutely wonderful. She was always so supportive, and she is someone that has also been through a pretty like, I don't want to say hard life, but she's had a lot of struggles she's overcome. And I think that intensity in how she approaches life is kind of how she came to us with all of her advice. And I think that's what made me so competitive in sports and even competitive in my own career path and just ambitious in that sense. But when it came to, and I reference this because the reason I really had no interest in architecture was her intensity almost, because I would be drawing maybe like a house or something for school, and she would come over and be like, "This line isn't straight. You do it over." And I just couldn't. It was like, it was like the moment I realized, it was like in elementary school, that I was like, I think I'm gonna love what she supports me in, as long as it's not the same thing.
Yeah, isn't it interesting how we steer away from our parents' profession very often? Just go take a completely different route, which you did. And as a child, it sounds like you were very sporty, even as a young child.
Yeah, that's a funny one too, because my mother put me in a lot of different sports when I was young, because I guess I just had a lot of energy. And so she basically told me later on in my life that she almost put me in like a tryout of she put me in soccer, she put me in basketball, she put me in track, she put me in like everything. And she was like, yeah, and I was just seeing where your talents lied. So I tried like all these different sports, and swimming is, I guess, where I succeeded in that.
Were you interested in anything else at school?
When I was younger, I was also very interested in photography and film. This would be the early 2000s, so film was a lot more harder to come by in terms of giving a child like a moving picture camera. So she gave me a 35 millimeter film still camera. So for most of my youth, I was really interested in still photography because that's all I had access to, until I reached high school, where they had like an AV situation.
Okay, are you a Nikon girl? We need to know which side you fall.
Actually, the first camera she gave me was a Canon. And I think from then on, I got a few other film still cameras, but when I went digital, the first cameras I had too were Canon. I even still own the 5D Mark III.
Okay.
Yeah, the old original there.
So you learned to use the darkroom. You were in film where you can, starting over, you knew all the basics.
Yeah, I was in darkroom film photography for years. I actually, when I left college, that was like one of the first things I missed because I didn't have access to anything like that.
Do you miss that now? Do you get a chance to do that just for fun?
I take a lot of film photography just for fun, but I have it developed just because it is rather a nuisance to try to do that you're on your own. I've gone to there's a few labs in Brooklyn that you can go in by yourself that I've tried once or twice. But my schedule's just a little too busy for that. But I definitely still take film photography.
So when you were a child and being in all of these sports, I'm wondering, and having a brother, was Anthony actually older than you?
No, he is 3 years younger.
I'm wondering if you were very competitive. Were you competitive with him? Were you always competitive in school and with your friends?
Yes, yes, I'm a very competitive person. I was always very competitive, but I will say the difference lies with my brother because we were so different. I grew very big and strong and tall. He grew very tall. And so his interests, he really didn't play sports. He really sat and played music most of the time. And so when it came to competitiveness with him, there was no like physical competitiveness, just because we were in such different brackets. And I think also we really formed more of a bond because of like some family trauma that we came together really well. And like, I was always very bad at math and he's sort of a savant. Like he would help me with my math homework and he's 3 years younger. And I would help him with whatever he was struggling with, whether it was PE or different like physical tasks. So we kind of complemented each other versus that sibling like combativeness.
So let's fast forward to then. You're coming to the end of high school and you've got to start thinking about college. Were you always destined in your own mind to go into this industry?
There was a point at the end of high school I had been very interested in film, but sports was in the front seat, and I had like a few months where I would continuously speak to my mother about how the film industry might not be the best place because I might not be successful. That was a true fear of mine at the end of high school, and sports for me was like, I've done this at that point my whole life, so I was like ready to just be an athlete. And we had so many talks for a handful of months about how, I can continue to do film well after my like physical peak. And sports will have an expiration date. And I wish I'd listened a little more, because I went headfirst into sports. And my freshman year of college, I was playing Division I water polo, and it kind of exploded. And I realized there's no way for me to be an artist and do high level athletics at the same time. And I ultimately ended up choosing to leave the school I got picked to play for. And I went home for a year and decided that I needed to just focus on my film career.
So that was Cal State, Northridge.
Yes.
But you had to go east, though, to get into film school. How did you feel about leaving your mum and leaving home?
Well, at the time, so I had left to Los Angeles for that first year, and that was hard, because at the time, too, my family was having some troubles. And when that year ended, I decided to stay home for that year and kind of make sure that the tumultuous waters were settled. And since my brother is 3 years apart, he actually he skipped a grade in elementary school because he's a very smart kid. And so we were then 2 years apart in school. So at this point, I had gone to Los Angeles for a year and came home for a year, and I was transferring for my third year of college while he was applying for his freshman year of college. And because he was so good with music, he basically had a full ride to anywhere he decided he wanted to go, and he decided he wanted to go to New York. And this was a kid that I've helped along the way in a lot of ways, and New York wasn't even on my radar, if I'm being honest. I was like LA all the way. I thought that was where the film industry was. And then when he got into New York, it made me nervous. So I had applied to New York purely because he had also. And when he got in, that made me nervous that he would be going by himself. And then 2 months later, I got an acceptance letter, and I was like, I guess we're going to New York.
Well, that was fun then. At least you would be together.
Right. Yeah. So that was kind of my goal with that, because, again, Sonoma is a small town, and I had now spent a year in Los Angeles, and then realizing my brother, who was leaving our small town at the age of 17 to go to college, I was like, all right, I think we have to kind of do this as a team. And I think it worked out for the best, because I think having us there together was the only way we were going to get through that pretty harsh culture shock from moving to Manhattan for college.
And what kind of student were you? Did you throw yourself all in like you did with your sports when you started college?
Yes, I pretty much anything I was a part of for most of my youth was a all or nothing situation for me, and I think I just got that from being in higher level athletics. They pretty much train you to be extreme in most aspects of your life. So I was very, very competitive, even within film school, which sounds insane, because every time I would even feel myself feeling like, am I the crazy one? Why am I trying so hard to be better than everyone right now? Like, there was no reason. Everyone's here making an art form, and I'm like, yeah, no, but mine's gonna be. And I had to like truthfully train myself out of that thought process for a while.
So ambitious.
Yeah, ambitious on steroids is probably.
I hear high energy as well, Ghitta. Are you still very ambitious, very driven?
Yeah, it is actually something even in like my romantic relationship now. he has to constantly remind me that everything I'm doing is fine and I'm in a good place. Because I'll sit there and worry about how I'm not at the next level, or I need to be somewhere networking with somebody to hopefully make sure that I'm on this set or anything in that regard. And I'll put myself in like a very like low mental health state of extreme like anxiety that he has to talk me down from to this day.
So when you were in film school, then what did that look like when you look back at that lifestyle of being in college and how it set you up for your career? What are your strongest memories? Tell us a little bit about that, because I think, that's so formative, those years, and influences what direction we take, how we channel our energy then going from college into a career and finding work. Talk a little bit about what that was like for you. And of course, the anticipation, the nervousness about getting into the industry and making your own pathway.
Yeah, that's probably one of the roughest time periods in any young artist's life, is that transition. And when I was so I graduated from NYU, I was the transfer. I went there for my junior and senior year. And in that time frame, I will say I have some mixed opinions of NYU, but I will say being in the city was a great thing for me to make some connections. But the students that I was working with were typically from families that had a lot higher of an income versus my single mother at the time, working as an architect. And I was on a lot of scholarships and a lot of financial aid. And typically at the end of most filmmakers' senior year, they make a thesis film. And NYU pretty much requires that you get your own equipment, which was really disheartening for me. And I did not have any of that kind of money to do that. So my first step was, I'm going to crew on everybody's film. So I have a lot more time on set and doing a lot more tech development, because I had the understanding that getting out of film school, I was going to be starting at the bottom. I was not going to be graduating and immediately becoming a cinematographer, which I will say is a lot of kids in school think that that's the case. So I had my rose-colored glasses were off. I understood what like the harsh life that was coming after graduation. And because I kind of put myself in those shoes, I think it helped me, because I took a lot of these small jobs that I don't even think people in school thought were legitimate yet. But I knew I needed a paycheck. So basically I graduated, and then I was still working at my gym, which is what the work I was doing a lot of the time during college to just make some extra cash. And I got involved with weightlifters and CrossFit athletes that wanted media. So my first jobs out of college were basically shooting photos and promotional content for high-level CrossFit athletes.
Interesting. And you were able to, make a living out of doing that to start with?
Yeah, because at the time, CrossFit was like exploding.
Yeah.
It was like this fitness boom. And I was pretty heavily involved with it as an athlete myself. And I realized a lot of these top guys, media and social media was becoming so important to them. And I was like, I'm pretty good at this. And I walked up to a handful of them and I just started taking photos. And then the word kind of got out and I started working for a lot of higher level people. Most notably, I did a lot of media for a man named Marcus Philly. And he was one of the top CrossFit athletes in the mid 2010s. So I started getting work published in like Men's Health and other stuff like that. And I realized after a couple of years, I'd kind of tapped out in terms of the ceiling that I was in, because I felt like I was doing really well. And I was like, and I want to get on bigger sets now. And that was when I kind of started to make the transition to let me become an AC in Local 600.
Did you have any mentors at the time, though, Ghitta? And even, while you were in film school, did you have any mentors that, and particularly women, who, inspired you and helped you?
Women in the fields that I were in at the time were so limited. I because at that moment I decided to put together like athletic and film and was doing this content for athletes. I was probably one of the only women doing this. Most of the other people that I met that were creating content were men and then male athletes. It was a pretty struggling time for me. I have to say, though, the people that I looked up to were more so my peers that I graduated film school with that were also women, because we were there together in this struggle, and I watched all of us come out of it successfully and support each other through it. Most notably, my two friends, Caitlin and Mackenzie, I went to college with them, and they basically got jobs at like Able Cine. That's a rental house, and if I wanted to shoot something, I could go to Mackenzie and she would help me with camera gear, and we were off and running. And it was kind of through that support that really helped me. Mentorship at the time was very limiting because I felt like it was all men.
But who were your influences, though, in inspiration of the films that you were watching when you were growing up?
Oh, I was actually a huge Tim Burton fan growing up. I'm most notably just because the style that he was producing was always, you could know immediately that it was his own. And it wasn't even so much that I wanted to replicate his style. I just liked that you could look at a still frame and be like, oh, that was his. It's like, I wanted something like that. Like if I took a photo, anyone could look at it and be like, oh, she did this. I really liked that aspect of it. And I wanted to really make sure that whatever I was shooting was distinctly my own.
And do you feel that you're creating that yourself now?
I'd like to think so. We talked on the phone a little bit about like my cinematography career and that aspect, and I am very particular with the jobs that I accept for that reason, because I really want to be able to make whatever project I'm shooting my own. And for myself, I usually truly like to use a lot of color and higher saturations of color. And when I was in film school, there was a pretty big wave of like muted tones. That was like the style that a lot of people were shooting with. And I kind of went against that grain and really tried to make everything that I was shooting very colorful, very contrasted, and really working on making sure everything fit aesthetically in frame.
So you really want to put your own mark on it, obviously, in your own career. I'm wondering, though, where that came from. And also, if you had any women cinematographers that you looked up to as a child. I mean, did you develop that eye when you were a child watching films and notice the cinematographers when you went to the movies? And so I'm hoping you're going to say some women here, because there are so many of them now.
Yeah, that's why when you're talking about it back when I was younger, it was harder to think of. Now, yes, I have a bunch of them. Back then, I actually distinctly remember, I want to say this was when I was graduating high school, the first like female cinematographer that I was like, this is something that women can do. I think she shot The Hurt Locker, which was like a huge film at the time. And that was like the first time I was like, oh, that's a female cinematographer. It was like almost like out of the first, like it was like the first example I had growing up of a female cinematographer was, and that is the only reason I even remember that film, because I don't even remember. I never was that interested in like war movies, but that was the first time that I was like, oh, that's a woman behind the camera. This can be done.
Right. Well, that's famously Catherine Bigelow, of course, that did that. So, yeah, she really, I think, waved the flag for women there, that this was possible. And She was a great pioneer, I think, still is.
Yeah, and that was the first example for me. And then I went into when I went to NYU, I actually had one professor I won't ever forget. It was like I watched the Hurt Locker happen. I get to NYU, and one of these professors was like, yeah, well, if you're a woman in my class, you're going to have to work really hard because women aren't usually DPs. And I remember being like, if you set that baton down, I'm going to run so hard. Like, you don't know how competitive I am. I will get there.
It's like opposition only makes me even more determined, you said.
Yeah, it was something. It's a statement I will never forget. And I see his face even. I actually don't even remember his name. I just see his face and him saying these words to this day.
Hi, my name is Teresa Bartali, and I'm a cinematographer who is a guest on the Art Podcast. But here's what I need you to do now. You've got to download and subscribe to the new Call Time Podcast. It's about women in all departments of film and television. And it's available now on all podcast apps. And don't forget to follow at the Call Time Podcast on Instagram. I'll see you there.
I can see how determined you are. Are you stubborn?
Yeah, most people would probably tell.
Yeah. I identify with that, Ghitta. We have some things in common. Determined, but also very stubborn.
I think there's a way that stubbornness can help. And if you can, like, figure out for yourself in which ways the stubbornness is a good position to stand firm and which positions aren't, I think it is not always a bad thing.
It isn't. No, it can be channeled to be very useful, actually. Let's go back to your tastes in film. And I'm wondering now, as you were shaping your career, what are your preferred genres?
I would say I've always been interested in movies that are very thought-provoking in like a psychological sense. And then I've also been very heavily interested in the genre of horror. And recently, I feel like horror movies are making a boom, and I'm actually very excited about it.
And what do you find you're doing most of the time now? Is it Steadicam? Where do you spend most of the time, do you think? Because you're, as you say, trying to be selective to carve your own, niche in this industry.
I would say I predominantly camera operate around 60% of the time. That is, whether it's Steadicam or handheld or standard on sticks. That is where I'm going to be making bulk of my money and my career path. But then probably 30% DP work, just due to this being selective. And by being selective, you're also turning down a lot of other jobs, or you're just not being put your name in for that. So I'm aware that my cinematography and that career trajectory is progressing much slower than my Steadicam career, which I'm become very okay with, because when I first started, like with the sports, I was shooting a lot of my own stuff. And when you start to shoot a lot and take every job that comes your way, a lot of that passion, I witnessed it in myself, just start to kind of wither. It doing it for a paycheck versus doing it because you love it is so different.
Yes, very much so. I'm wondering, in your career there thus far, what you would describe as career developing moments, like that have really shaped your direction in terms of the people that you've worked with, the jobs that you've got, the opportunities that you've had. What have been the most defining moments for you?
I think there's a couple in a couple different avenues. I would say for my cinematography career, I was an assistant for a number of years, pulling focus. And I think that I was on a handful of sets, mainly bigger music video sets as an assistant, that really opened my eyes to how creative that genre can be. And kind of like how unlike a narrative where you're focusing on a story structure, music videos can be purely uh, image based or artistic in an experimental way, and or in a narrative. It just has there's no like all the guardrails are off. You can choose anything, and watching some of those music videos unfold in that capacity kind of opened my eyes a lot to cinematography, like to just cinema ideas and shots that I want to create in my own way.
Where do you see your career going? What's on your to-do list of maybe some other skills as well that you want to explore?
I would say I'm in my Steadicam career. I am like a toddler walking, and I want to continue to refine that skill. I'm so far from being the number one call. I want to get to that point, and then I also want to learn other skills in that way, because there's wheels that you can operate with that I have very little experience with. I want to refine that skill. There's also different like automotive operating techniques, like if you're on a high-speed chase scene and that kind of stuff. I find that stuff all fascinating. I'd love to get more involved with like stunt and pursuit camera operating, and potentially even underwater camera operating. I've looked into that a little bit. Also just due to the fact that I can swim well. That's also been something that I'd like to look into. So a lot of camera movement and camera ideas and like techniques and skills in just camera motion. I'd really want to continue down those paths.
Yeah, I could see stunt fitting very well in with you physically. Stunt and underwater. Perfect fits.
Yeah, they seem also so much fun. I've done one underwater camera, and it was more so because I was on set with someone that does underwater camera, and I told him that I was a swimmer, and he let me try it, which was amazing. And after that, I was like, all right, I got to figure out how I can get more involved with this.
What have you mostly been working on so far this year, Ghitta?
Well, the industry's in a weird way. I would say a lot of the stuff I've been doing this year has been a lot of commercial work and music videos. Those have been pretty big jobs for me this year. The biggest Steadicam job that I was actually on a Tiffany's commercial, and that was really exciting. And we got to work with Anya Taylor-Joy. She's an actress in The Queen's Gambit. And that was exciting because I think that was my first time being on like a major scaled like set with Steadicam and being that close to a A-lister.
We're just over halfway through the year now. What are you looking forward to?
Next week, I am shooting a music video, which I'm actually very excited about. And this connection happened through actually my brother, because he's another jazz musician who is very, do you know John Baptiste?
I do.
So to me, I see this young man as another version of him. He's very, very good at what he does, and he has a very high level vision for what he wants to attain. And when he came to me with his song and his ideas for the video, I got very excited, and it's something that I'm actually really happy about, because I feel like most of this year I haven't been super excited about anything to shoot. Steadicam jobs, I've had a number of exciting ones, but this is like one of the first exciting DP jobs I'm working on this year.
Do you write at all? Are you interested in writing?
That one's funny for me because I've never very much enjoyed writing, but every time I've been in writing classes or around writers, they like what I write. I've just never been excited to write.
So for fun then, Ghitta, is it with a still camera these days? What do you do for fun if you're not... I suppose CrossFit is a big part of your spare time too, because that is very time consuming.
Yeah, I usually like to tell people if I'm not on set, I'm probably in the gym. But if outside of those things, it's usually still photography, and that's also something that I'm starting to pick up a little bit with. I'm trying to find ways to manufacture. I'm talking with some carpenters actually. I'm trying to do some bigger set work with photography on my own. And that's something that I'm kind of keeping a little under wraps but trying to figure out if I can find a way to do some really fun still photography work in a spare time capacity.
You sound like you're really busy. You're filling all of those corners of your life.
I would say people usually tell me I'm someone that's hard to relax.
Right. I'm getting that impression. Very high energy. But at the end of the day, a lot of satisfaction with the work that you're doing, though, now. I
feel like I want to say yes, but there's also part of me that just will never be satisfied, I guess. So I just keep...
Are you a perfectionist, then? Are you striving for perfection?
That's also a topic that I've gone back and forth with, where sometimes I feel like, yes, that must be why I'm pushing so hard. But other times I feel like that isn't the 100% the correct answer. I want things to go well and feel fulfilled, but perfection might not always be the exact word that I'm trying to reach. It's more so, is it perfect for me and not, it doesn't matter that it's perfect for everybody else, I guess.
What would your mum say about you, Ghitta?
She usually tells people that I'm an extremely high achiever and a very dedicated, hardworking person. She often tells everyone that she's very proud of me, and I appreciate that, but I also think that a lot of that just comes from herself being proud of who she's raised and who she's watched me become, because she's made me so hardworking and dedicated.
Well, she clearly was a very good influence on you.
Thank you. Yeah, no, she's wonderful, and she actually wrote a book recently that describes her hardships in her life, and I think that her writing a book in her free time is kind of what inspired me to continuously push for creating consistently as well.
Well, what would you say to her if she's listening?
Well, firstly, hello. Thanks for listening. And I guess, thank you for always standing by my side, even if I'm stubbornly wrong.
That's lovely. Message to Mum.
Yeah.
That's a great note to finish on, Ghitta. Thank you so much for taking time to come on the podcast and share your journey with us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It felt like it went by so quickly already.
Well, we're going to jump over to YouTube now and continue our conversation there. So anybody who's listening to the podcast, do find a moment to go over to YouTube so you actually can see Ghitta Larsen on video there on YouTube, and where we will continue our conversation. But for now, for the podcast, Ghitta, thank you so much indeed for being my guest this week.
Yes, thank you so much again.
And before you go, don't forget to slide down the show notes below, where you'll find a link to Ghitta's social media and also to our Instagram as well, where you can post your comments, questions, suggestions for guests. We would always love to hear from you. And of course, you can reach us via email too, if you prefer, at theartpodcast@gmail.com. That's art with 2 A's. And also, while you're on your app, if you do have a moment, please do leave us a 5-star rating and review, because that raises our profile amongst thousands and thousands of podcasts, which then helps others to find the show. And as I said earlier, don't forget to hop over to our YouTube channel, where you'll find an extended conversation with Ghitta. Just look for the Art Podcast on YouTube. We have interviews there from all our guests from season 3. Extended conversation in the show that we like to call the After Show. That's all on our YouTube channel. My thanks again to my guest this week, Ghitta Larsen, and to you, as always, for listening. I know you have so many choices when it comes to podcasts, so I do appreciate your support here on the Art Podcast. Don't forget to check out the Call Time podcast for those of you interested in women in film and television from all departments. That's the Call Time podcast. And that, of course, is on any podcast app. I'll be back in 2 weeks' time, when my guest will be the American surrealist artist Sophie Kipner. So I do hope you'll join me then.